Every Tuesday, Thursday, you read his column, St. Louis Post-Dispatch. He's always pouring gasoline on some fire or another. Good morning, Tony Messenger.
Pouring gasoline on the fire. This is what I do. I learned how to light a match when I was a young man, and apparently that's my job.
All right, where are we with this Scottrade Center? It seems like this compromise by the Board of Aldermen was done by themselves and without any input from the St. Louis Blues.
Yeah, and I don't know whether this new proposal is intended as an olive branch to try to get the lawsuit settled, or if it is a compromise that has been worked out behind the scenes with some folks. Clearly, the Blues aren't enamored with it, but it is a potential way forward to get these lawsuits settled and out of the way. The proposal put forward by Alderman Kara Spencer basically calls for the Blues to use the ticket tax that exists in law already, and add an additional fee on top of that. There's a facility fee that the Blues already charge, and they maintain that money. What the new proposal by Alderman Spencer is basically use that facility fee to offset the general revenue that would have gone to pay for some of the new renovations.
Right.
And so it's a money shift. It is basically the reason that Darlene Green, the city controller, has not signed off on the deal that the alderman already passed is because she says it threatens the credit report of the city, and she's got documentation with that. And the reason that it threatens the credit of the city is it's using general revenue in a city that already has budget problems to pay for these renovations. And so the way to get out of that is to find a way to make sure that it's not using general revenue. That's the nature of this proposal. My best guess is it's a conversation starter that if the Blues are unsuccessful in getting rid of these lawsuits that are blocking them right now, that it becomes a potential avenue for solving the problem. Ultimately, this is about who pays. It's
right.
about whether taxpayers pay or whether the Blues pay. That's ultimately what the dispute is.
Well,
the renovations are already done.
They're done. They're going to open up the season here next week. They're already playing. It's already up and running again. But just so everybody understands, the Board of Aldermen passed it. The mayor signed it. And Darlene Green decides that she doesn't want to do it. What power does she have to go against the quote-unquote rule of law and the legislation and the past and the signing? Does she have the power to just arbitrarily say no?
That is ultimately up to the court right now. This issue has been litigated before to some degree, and there's been sort of differing rulings from judges depending on the specific nature of it. But there is a general belief that the controller has the right and the duty to protect the city's credit rating, to ultimately not sign checks that she finds inappropriate for whatever reason. This sort of thing has happened previously, and what the Blues are arguing is that no, her job is just ministerial. We pass bills and she signs them, and that's what this dispute is about. I suspect, based on my reading of previous cases, that she's got a pretty solid leg to stand on, that at the very least she's got enough legitimacy in the decision that she's made that for this thing to come to resolution, it's at least going to be litigated. The court's not just going to toss it summarily. If that's the case, the Blues and the city are in for a long, expensive battle that doesn't particularly do anybody any good. And so my suspicion is if it doesn't get tossed in summary judgment, they're going to have to find a way to settle this thing. And ultimately, the way for them to settle this thing isn't so much in court. It's probably a new bill through the Board of Aldermen.
Well, but who cares? Because who cares what the Board of Aldermen passes? Because she can just arbitrarily decide one way or the other. If the court rules in her favor, how can it be she would just be able to say, clean the streets? No, I don't want to do that. Spend money over here? Okay, I'll do that. It sounds like if she wins, She keeps all the purses for the checkbook.
I think it depends on the legal argument as to why she wins. Not that she can arbitrarily say no, but does her responsibility in the charter require her to exercise certain control over the finances? And if this gives her a narrow path to do that, then it is going to be an issue that the city is going to have to deal with. The thing about the city government is it's an archaic structure. It's not an efficient structure. We have a weak mayor system. We have too many aldermen. We have county offices in the city that probably shouldn't exist. We have this spread out power that makes it hard for leaders to emerge and the city to move forward with one voice. So part of the problem is that our government structure is broken. The other part of the problem is when you're going to try to pass something like this, whether it's the arena, whether it's Ballpark Village, whether it's MLS, whether it's the Amazon plan, it behooves city leaders to find consensus. That hasn't always been the case, and this is one of those examples where, yes, they found the votes to pass, but they didn't really build consensus, and that's why there is still such a lingering, difficult feeling, and that's why it's stuck in court.
But consensus is the majority of people and the mayor, right? I mean, they have the Board of Aldermen. They have 28. They got it passed and went through whatever committee, whatever alderman. The alderman garnered some consensus to have the majority of aldermen vote for it, some consensus to have the mayor sign it. So they did build consensus, and they did cut a deal. If this doesn't go through, what does this say going forward, Tony, for Amazon? They want to cut a deal with the city, or any other business that wants to do business in the city. The city can't be trusted if they pass this bill and then one person says no.
Well, to me, it continues to build support for the idea that we need new government structure in the city, in the county, et cetera. I mean, one of the things that we don't talk about enough when we talk about city-county merger, we're not talking about adopting the current city form of government for the entire county or adopting the county form of government for the city. We're talking about redesigning it. We're talking about coming up with a government structure that works for the people. To me, this adds fuel to that fire. There we go. I'm using your metaphor. Let me put a match to that. When we talk about the problems in St. Louis, every single issue that we deal with ultimately comes down to our broken governance. And so everybody knows that the way the city of St. Louis is organized in terms of governing structure is archaic and needs to be fixed. The problem is, how do we get there? And so to me, this adds more fuel to that fire. It adds evidence to the fact that we need to fix our governance structure.
Well, we can all agree on that. Tony, good work as always. STLtoday.com, and here Tuesday and Thursday.